here is when we think about what does a good person do, a good person gives to the poor. A good person will stand here in a pulpit and preach. But if they do it without the love of God, it profiteth nothing. Nothing. So love provides purpose. The second thing I want to talk about is starting in verse 4. So in verse 4, he says, charity suffereth long and is kind. Charity envieth not. Charity vaunteth not itself, is not puffed up. It doth not behave itself unseemly, seeketh not her own, is not easily provoked, thinketh no evil, rejoiceth not in iniquity, but rejoices in the truth. So the second thing that I want to talk about that love gives us here is personality. It starts with a P. I'm told you're supposed to do that. I have 3 points. Love provides us, like we talked about in the first one, purpose. The second thing what we're going to talk about is personality. You want to be a better person? These are the things you need to do. This is how you improve your personality. If you don't like who you are, maybe I'm the only one. I look in my mirror and I go, man, I really don't like that about myself. Well, this is how you get better. We practice these things. Something else I want to think about and talk about is, look, the love of God. When we talk about the love of God, this is what that is. And so when God does something, every single one of these things in these verses is met. God acts out of love. So charity suffereth long and is kind. Everything that God does, everything that he does is kind. He does not do anything that is unkind. And this is where it gets hard. If you're not a believer today, step back to purpose just a little bit. And I want to think about this because this will play here. Is you get up every day, and if you're grown, you go to work, and you work hard. If you're not grown, you still have stuff to do. You've got to go to school. You've got to learn. You got all those things to do. So you get up in the morning and you go to work, right? And you work and you pay your bills and you build wealth, right? And that's what we do as we go along our lives. We build wealth. And that's good. That's okay. That's a good thing. It's a good thing as long as we're doing it for the right purpose. So we go along line, all right? And so like I was talking about with Stephen Hawking and the knowledge, there's the other side of this is also wealth, right? I don't know, who's the wealthiest person you can think of? I don't know, Bill Gates maybe, Warren Buffett. Those guys are really, really rich. Warren Buffett is a great example, but I don't know where he is spiritually. So Warren Buffett has built up a huge amount of wealth, right? And my understanding from the last time I heard was his plan of what he planned to do at the end of his life when he loses his life. He plans on most of that, the vast majority of his vast wealth, he's going to give to charities. So that's interesting that we were talking about that. Very little of it, my understanding is he plans to give to his kids. He plans 90% or something like that to go. But anyway, people also change their minds. So that was the last thing that I read. And I don't know where he is spiritually. But at the end of his life, all of that's gone for him, right? And if he's not a believer, if he doesn't have the right purpose, he gets no benefit from it, like we talked about with the purpose. So let's break it down to us. So we get up in the morning and we go to work. We go to school and we work for something. At the end of the day, you hope to have accomplished something, right? And if you haven't accomplished something, you're pushing towards that, whatever that goal is, right? So I liken it to building something. All right. Brother Paul builds a lot of stuff. It's pretty cool. You get to watch some stuff go up and see that. If you got up every day and went to work and we're building a building and you went home and every day, every next morning you came in, everything that you did yesterday is gone, how long would you keep doing it? How long would you try to keep building that? Every day that we go out without the purpose of God, every day that we go out and we go live our lives without the purpose of God, it's like we did nothing. No matter how hard you work, no matter how much effort you have put into it, if it wasn't for the right purpose, it's gone. It's gone. 1 Corinthians, I think it's in chapter 3, he talks about, he mentions, and I'm going to try to find this because I meant to write it down and I didn't. That's what happens when you're writing these out and you're going, oh, okay, I need to remember that one. I think it's 1 Corinthians 3. Okay, so 1 Corinthians chapter 3, it says, for other foundation, starting in verse 11, he says, for other foundation can no man lay than that is laid, which is Jesus Christ. Now, if any man build upon this foundation, gold, silver, precious stones, wood, hay, stubble, every man's work shall be made manifest, for the day shall declare it, because it shall be revealed by fire, and the fire shall try every man's work of what sort it is. If any man's work abide, which he hath built thereupon, he shall receive a reward. If any man's work shall be burned, he shall suffer loss. But he himself shall be saved, yet so as by fire. So we go out and we work hard. And even as a believer, just because we're a believer doesn't mean that everything that we do is for the right purpose. And so when we go out and we go do those things, if we're doing it for the purpose of God, what Paul writes here in Corinthians 3 is that all of that's going to be tried by fire. And if it's done for God, if it's done for Jesus Christ, if it's built on that foundation of Christ, it'll be put to the fire. But guess what happens? It doesn't go away. It's still there. So remember what I was talking about. If you get up in the morning and you do it for the wrong purpose, if you get up in the morning and do it for the wrong purpose, if you get up in the morning and do it for the wrong purpose, all of that's gone. But if you get up in the morning and you work and you do it for the right purpose, it's there. It will make it through the fire. So I think about this, and this has been something I have had to learn over the last 2 years, at least the 2 years, probably longer than that. I get up and I go to work. Well, my job is not a God-centered job. I enforce laws. That's what I do. But because I serve God, need to do my job the best that I can do. And if I do it that way, if I do it for the right purpose, if I do it for God, it still is to my credit. It may not be that I'm out there building a church every day, but I'm still in the place that God has me. And I'm sure that each and every one of us can see that in our own lives. God will put you where He wants you. And whatever it is that you're doing, that's what you need to do. Like it says that we should do everything as if we are doing it to God. And that's why. And so that's what gives that value and purpose. What I was getting back to is, again, so our personality and kindness. This is not an easy thought. This is not something that is easy to get around. The reality is here that nothing God does is unkind. So when you think about people that you know that are not a believer, they face something. They face that second death. They face that hell. But understand, if God has to do that, if God has to issue righteous judgment and send them to those places, to hell, to second death, it is not unkind. It is what was necessary. God is a just God. He's a righteous judge. Brother Sam mentioned that he was a righteous judge this morning. That is the reality. He's a righteous judge. And we need to remember that because that matters. It matters here. The reality is God doesn't do anything that doesn't meet this definition of love. So charity suffereth long and is kind. It envieth not. Charity vaunteth not itself, is not puffed up. Doth not behave itself unseemly, seeketh not her own, is not easily provoked, thinketh no evil, rejoiceth not in iniquity, but rejoiceth in the truth. These are all things that the love of God brings to the table. And so if we want to improve our personality, these are the types of things that we need to start doing. And this week I've had a tough week of looking in that mirror and going, oh, I say unkind things all the time. And what's amazing and what's awesome, I've learned this was awesome over the last week. Brother Sam mentioned this morning as well. But Pastor talked about chastening. We know because God chastens us. We know that we are His. And I'm sitting here and I say an unkind thing, and then the Spirit goes, "What?" And I'm like, "Oh, man, I know better. I know better." But now I'm like, that's awesome because it just kind of confirms, I know. Unkind. So, the third thing that God's love provides for us is perseverance. So 1 Corinthians 13 in verse 7. And remember, we're still talking about charity or the love of God. Verse 7, beareth all things, believeth all things, hopeth all things, endureth all things. And then the very first part of verse 8, charity never faileth. So the third thing that we want to talk about is that God's love provides perseverance. So the more that we get ourselves in that right place, the more that we love one another, the more that we are following this commandment, it will provide us with perseverance. Because if we strengthen this, look, if you want strong muscles, what do you have to do, Brother Montana? You lift. What do? You go lift, right? So you strengthen that muscle. If you've got a weak knee because you've just had knee replacement surgery, do you sit down and not move it? No, you get up and you work it and you strengthen it, right? So just like that, we have to strengthen this part of our personality. The personality, we need to love one another, so we need to strengthen it. Well, guess what the church has? Opportunities. There's opportunities all around you to show your love for one another. So we need to look around and we need to practice that and we need to strengthen that muscle. We need to get as good as we can get, because remember what we talked about before we even really started the lesson. If it starts being illegal to come through these doors, you need the strength to be able to follow that commandment, right? We're commanded to not forsake the gathering of ourselves together. So that's a commandment of God. It doesn't matter who tells us not to. It's a commandment of God. So that's going to be over there, and we still need to come in these doors. I'm sure it'll look a little different. But we need to practice and we need to strengthen that. Just like you don't want to miss a day at the gym, because you miss one day, it's easy to miss a second. You miss that second, oh, well, I just wait till next week. Next week, next month. You know what? I'll wait till the new year. It'll be fine. You know, I'm getting older. Do I really need muscles? I don't know. I think it's kind of overrated. Whatever. I mean, it does say that physical exercise profiteth little. I know that's in there. I don't remember exactly where it is, but I know it's in there. But we do need to practice this. We need to practice our love for one another. I don't remember what time we started. I do know that with Pastor here, if you are a visitor here, we are so happy that you're here. I want to say that. We are very happy that you're here, but don't get used to getting out at 12:05. I'm just saying. But please come back. Don't be scared by that. Don't be scared like that. You spent 40 hours at work this week. You can spend an hour and a half here. Yeah, that got me this morning because I've been working overtime. So I worked 62 hours this week, and it was like, okay, this is great. How much time did I spend in studying? Hour. I didn't spend 62 hours studying. So what was I doing? Of course, I mean, that's my job. So I still have that purpose there. But there is still that part of you that goes, I should have probably studied more. I studied a lot. I'm not saying that I probably could have studied more. I know that. I didn't do it for 62 hours. So if we practice our love, so keep in mind, what is this commandment that we're talking about? We're trying to shine our light into our community. And Jesus tells us that we are going to shine our light by loving one another. So here's a question. I don't know who lives back here. Does anybody know them? What do they think of us? Do they know that we're true believers? Do they know that we're disciples of Christ? Right there. I don't know. I've been coming here for 2 years, and I don't know. I think Pastor knows who they are. I think he does. So then I'm going to take this a little bit closer to home. What about your neighbors? Do your neighbors know that you are a disciple of Christ? Do they know? I don't even know my neighbors. I'll be honest. We're out there. We've got barriers. So for me, it comes down. So then the second question is the people at work, the people where you work, the people at school, the people that you interact with at school. Because I'm sure your mom knows that you're a believer or not. We have quite a few homeschoolers in here, and I'm sure your mom knows whether or not you're a believer. But you interact with other people. You interact with the people online. You interact with other people. You interact with people at work. Do they know you're a disciple of Christ? I get to interact with 9 new people every day. And I'm sure that if you all think about it, you probably are in that ballpark, unless you have a home office and only work at home. But even then, you still interact with people online. Do they know you're a believer? Do they know you're a disciple of Christ? That's a tough one for me. It really is. It's a struggle. You know, the other one that you get faced with, and I'm kind of resorting to my own personal experience, but when you deal in law enforcement, you oftentimes find irate people. I don't know how it happens. You find irate people. And so then your coworkers see how you handle those irate people. The irate person sees how you handle them. Do they know you're a disciple of Christ? Do they see that? It's a tough question. It's a tough question that I don't even have an answer for, personally. I guess I could go ask I know my coworkers know that I'm a believer because we've talked about it. But when a driver comes in, or when that irate citizen comes in, and can they tell? I don't know. A lot of times I think they're probably so caught up in their own anger that they probably won't notice anything. But that it's a tough thing. So think about that when you're going around. Think about these things that love is. Think about those unkind words. Think about, are you patient? Or do you suffer long? One of the things that it just skipped. It happens. I had this word and it flew away. Anyway, so the world today says that there is nothing after life. If you listen to what man says, we're just a bunch of cells that conglomerated over 1 billion years. That's not what God says. Not at all. And one of the things that I see very much is it feels like, just to be fair, our society, our culture, our nation is going downhill at a rapid pace. And the Lord, please, Lord, come quickly. Something that I've been fighting with, and I will say this, the reality is I don't know when it was, a couple months ago, maybe I preached a sermon out of Ecclesiastes. And one of the things that the preacher says in Ecclesiastes is vanity is vanity. It's all vanity. It's all emptiness. It's all nothingness. Unless we're doing it for God. And what I find interesting is that this is kind of the completion of that thought. When you think about what he did in Ecclesiastes, he tried everything. He's like, I'm going to do this on my own way, on my own terms. I'm going to go do what my body wants to do. I'm going to go do this. I'm going to get all this wealth, and I'm going to be this fame. We still know who Solomon is. That was, 500 BC, so almost 3,000 years. We still know who Solomon was. And at the end of that, he said, oh, it's just emptiness. It's nothing. The only thing we all have to look forward to is death. But we all have a different choice. We all get to choose. God gave us a choice. He loved us so much that he commended his love towards us in that while we were yet sinners, Christ died for us. We get a choice, and that choice is simply this: eternal life or second death. It comes down to that. That is the choice. You can choose to believe in Jesus Christ as your Savior, as God tells us in his book, or you can choose second death. Let's all stand to our feet. And I want to think about this as